so help you God?
I do.
Good morning. Slide this.
Thank you.
There you go.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
May.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record?
Vanessa Irene Pettigrew.
Could you please, oh, I'm sorry.
T-T-I-G-R-E-W.
What is your date of birth?
7/15/1983.
Do you work?
I do.
What do you do for work?
I'm a quality improvement specialist.
What does that entail?
I do quality improvement projects for hospitals, for community health centers, and for community members.
Where do you live?
I live in Wellesley, Massachusetts.
Are you familiar with Kathleen McLean?
Yes, I am.
Did she also go by Katie?
Yes.
When did you meet Katie?
I met Katie in 2015, and prior to that, I had met her on an informal basis.
How did you meet her in 2015?
I became a client of hers. I was referred to her from a friend.
So when you say a client, what do you mean?
She's a Reiki practitioner.
Could you please explain to us what a Reiki practitioner is?
Yes, I'm actually also a Reiki practitioner, and I studied 2 other different modalities as well. And it's an energy therapy that helps people with wellness. It helps them with calming and overall sense of great well-being. It's a modality that has been proven in studies to show to be effective in PubMed, and it's readily researchable now.
So when you met Katie in 2015, she was practicing Reiki?
Yes, she was.
Where was she doing that?
She was doing that in her practice in Marlborough, her office.
Did Katie have any children when you met her?
Yes, Katie has 3 children.
So I guess I should back up a little bit. You met Katie when you were a client of hers while she was doing Reiki.
Yes.
Did your relationship continue outside of Reiki?
Yes, I actually had maybe 1 or 2 sessions with her, and then I felt comfortable from there on taking things on my own, and we became really good friends and actually sort of an apprentice at one point. So we had a very close relationship.
Okay. And you said when you met Katie, she had 3 children?
Yes.
Was she married at the time that you met her?
Yes, she was married at the time I met her.
Who was she married to?
She was married to Chris Foley.
Is Chris Foley the father of her children?
No.
Who is?
That is Stephen Rocca.
And where was she living when she was married to Chris Foley?
She was living in Sudbury.
Did her children live with her?
Yes, they did.
At some point, did she divorce Chris Foley?
Yes, she did.
Where did she live after that?
She lived in Sudbury in her own home.
Who did she live with?
She lived with her 3 children.
And are you familiar with Ingolf Tuerk?
Yes, I am.
How did you meet him?
I met Harry through Katie around November.
So you said Harry. Is that how you knew him?
Yes, his nickname was Harry.
Okay. And you said that you met Harry through Katie, is that right?
That's right.
Had you been friends with Katie when she met Mr. Tuerk?
Can you repeat that?
So you had been friends with Katie when she met Mr. Tuerk, is that right?
I was friends with Katie much prior to meeting Mr. Tuerk, that's right.
How did they meet, if you know?
They met through online dating.
And do you see Mr. Tuerk in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify him by an article of clothing?
Yes, he's wearing a blue tie.
Your Honor, could the record please reflect identification?
Yes.
Yeah. How often did you communicate with Katie during your friendship with her?
Katie and I talked almost every day by text and by phone.
How often would you see her physically?
We got to be pretty close. We would see each other on weekends pretty often.
How much time did you spend with Katie and the defendant when they were together?
The same amount of time. It was nice. We watched football games together. We had really great cookouts and times together as friends.
How often do you think that you spent time with the two of them together?
At least a couple times a month.
Would you speak with the defendant separately from Katie?
I would, yes.
How often would you say?
Less. Our relationship was a little bit different. Katie and I were very close on multiple different ways. Harry and I became colleagues, and so we would talk mostly about work.
So can we talk a little bit about that? How did you and Harry become colleagues?
I applied to St. Elizabeth Medical Center as a surgical technologist, and I had a coworker that already worked there. Her name was Patricia McNamee, and she was the VP of Perioperative Services that I worked prior with her at Beth Israel. And so I applied there. I let Harry know I applied, and that's how the position started.
Why did you let Harry know when you applied to St. Elizabeth's?
Harry was a surgeon there.
And do you know in what field?
Yes, he was the chief of urology.
When did you...
The surgery department.
Oh, thank you. When did you get your job at St. Elizabeth's?
It was around 2018 that I recall.
Would you see Harry during your work shifts?
I saw him almost daily, if not face-to-face. I saw him working. He worked almost 4 days a week in surgery. And I was in the OR with him on occasion.
About how many times were you in the OR with him?
Off the top of my head, at least 20, if not more.
And how was the defendant referred to while he was at work?
Most people called him Harry or Dr. Tuerk.
You stated that Katie was living in Sudbury after she had divorced Chris Foley. Is that right?
That's right.
Was she living there when she met the defendant?
Yes, she was. She had a lovely house in Sudbury.
At some point, did her living situation change?
Yes, she decided to move in with Ingolf Tuerk.
Where was that?
In Dover, Massachusetts, on 26 Valley Road.
You said 26 Valley Road?
29 Valley Road. Sorry,
Thank you.
excuse me.
And who was living in the house at that time when Katie moved in?
When Katie moved in, Harry had his 2 children, and also Katie's children moved in as well.
Were the defendant's children living in the house full-time?
Part-time. Their mother lived in Dover as well.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that?
The children that Harry had, mother lived in Dover as well.
So there was shared custody between the defendant's children, is that right?
Yes.
When Katie moved into the defendant's home at 29 Valley Road, what was the status of their relationship? Were they married?
When they moved in?
Yes.
They were dating with the idea of getting engaged.
Did they get married?
Yes, they did.
When was that?
It was in December.
Were you at the wedding?
I was not. It was in Vegas.
How did that come about, if you know?
They had been talking about getting married for a long time in their relationship, and they had talked back and forth about getting married in Vegas a number of times. So on this occasion, it was just kind of a surprise for the family and all of us that they got married in Vegas. And, you know, the kids got along really well, so it made sense at the time.
Were the kids at the wedding in Vegas, if you know?
Not that I know of.
So it was just the two of them that went on a vacation and ended up getting married?
Yep, private moment. Mm-hmm.
And after they got married, did they continue to live at 29 Valley Road?
They did.
Turning your attention to February 3rd of 2020, Did Katie obtain a 209A restraining order against the defendant?
Yes, she did.
As a condition of that restraining order, did the defendant have to leave 29 Valley Road?
Yes, he did.
Where did he go, if you know?
He went to first a colleague, a friend, Charles Lax. He went to another place in Dover, and then he eventually, I think, went to Florida to live with Bob from Stewart. He had a camper in Florida that he was staying in.
How often were you communicating with Katie at that point?
Pretty much daily.
How would you communicate with her?
Mostly by text and also by phone.
What types of things would you and Katie talk about?
We would talk about her day-to-day, you know, the weather. We would talk about COVID, because it was COVID at the time. We would talk about anything and everything, fashion, nails, literally everything that a friend would talk to a good friend about, her family, her kids. I feel like I knew the kids myself very well. She would send me videos of the kids.
Would you talk about your relationships?
Yes.
And in February 3rd, or around February of 2020, after the defendant had moved out of the house, were they taking steps towards divorce, if you know?
They were, yes.
At some point in April of 2020, did that change?
Yes, there was a change. Harry had sent an email through his lawyer to reconcile.
And was Katie considering that?
She was going back and forth. She was uncertain, but conflicted. She had to weigh the pros and cons. She was very concerned about her children having a normal, stable life. She wanted the best for her kids. That's all she wanted.
And did they move towards reconciliation, if you know?
They did.
And how did that happen?
Like I said, Harry's lawyer reached out that he wanted to reconcile, and they started the process. I believe there was a prenuptial agreement, and there were several things that they had to decide upon with each other that they would do moving forward to make it work, including having Dr. Tuerk undergo some psychiatric help and to refrain from
Sustained.
alcohol.
Excuse me.
Sustained. Please disregard that last answer is stricken. Next question, please.
So when they began reconciliation or talking about reconciliation, where was Katie and her children living at that time?
Katie and her children were living in Dover.
And where was the defendant living?
He was living in a hotel in Dedham.
Prior to coming to the hotel in Dedham, where was he living, if you know?
As far as I know, he was living in Florida, and he had come up from that trip by car.
Did he drive himself, if you know?
Katie helped him.
And how is that?
He had some back pain, and he felt like he couldn't do the drive alone. So she, out of the kindness of her heart, obviously wanted to help him. And she drove to meet him halfway, and I believe Mr. Rocca also went as well to help make the transition of cars.
Mr. Rocca being the children's father, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. When the defendant came back from Florida and was staying in the hotel in Dedham, was Katie seeing him?
Can you repeat that?
When the defendant came back from Florida and was staying at that Dedham hotel, was Katie seeing him at that time?
Yes, she would bring him food. It was COVID. It was very difficult to get supplies and food, and she would supply him with his dinners or something to eat.
Was him coming to Dedham just another step in reconciliation?
Yeah, it was a way to safely try things out and to, maintain the relationship.
Turning your attention to May 15th of 2020, do you remember that day?
Yes, I do.
What happened?
I received a text message from our friend Kurt
What's Kurt's last name?
Fennesteel.
And what was the text message that you received?
I received a message believed to be from Harry, and he made a kind of alarming statement to Kurt, and we didn't really know exactly what it meant.
So I think I'm going to back you up just a little bit. Approximately what time was the first text message that you received from your friend Kurt?
It was around 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. And what was that first text message that you received, if you can recall?
I remember the context of the message. It basically said, "Sorry, brother," and said that Katie was a devil, and she manipulated everybody.
Prior to receiving that text message, did you receive another text message from Kurt?
I'm not sure which text you'd be referring to.
Is your memory exhausted as to the text messages that you first received from Kurt on May 15th of 2020?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be helpful to review your text messages?
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, these have been pre-marked as exhibits. Once I show the exhibit to the witness, may I display them on the screen?
Yes, no objection,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Reddington?
No, of course not, no.
You may.
And if you could just look at Exhibit 147 to yourself and read it, and let me know when your memory is refreshed, please.
Okay, I understand.
Okay. And what was that first text message that you received from Kurt?
He was asking me to call him as soon as possible.
And what else did he say?
He said we might have a popcorn situation.
What did that mean to you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear it. We might have a what situation?
We might have a popcorn situation.
Okay, thank you.
And what did that mean to you?
Objection.
Overruled, she can answer it.
Popcorn was a code word if Katie needed anything from Kurt and I immediately, that we would be able to respond to her as soon as possible.
When you first got those two messages in the early morning hours of May 15th, how did you feel?
Objection.
I felt,
Stay. Next question.
Okay. Ms. Gilman, could you please put Exhibit 147 on the screen? And if you could move up just a little bit.
There's a bit of a glare. Could we possibly turn the lights down a little bit? Is that better, Juris? Yes. Okay, all right. Thank you.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just move the screen down a little bit, thank you. And Ms. Pettigrew, are those the two messages that you received from Kurt on May 15th?
yes, they are.
Okay. And did you receive a third text message from him?
Yes.
And what was the third text message that you received from him?
The third text message was a copy of a text from Harry.
And what did that text message say?
That text message said, "I'm sorry, brother. Katie's the devil, and she manipulated all of us."
Ms. Gilman, could you please move down to page 2? And there's a text message in green on page 2 of Exhibit 147. Is that the text that you received from Kurt that morning?
Yes.
And what does it say?
Kurt, I am sorry, brother.
If you need to refer to the exhibit in front of you, if that's easier to read, I know the screen is somewhat far away. I apologize for that.
Kurt, I am sorry, brother. But she is a vindictive devil. She played us all. I am really sorry, brother, but she manipulated us all. Love you, Harry.
After receiving that text message, what did you do?
After receiving this text message, I tried reaching out to Katie, and me and my husband, we got into the car and we tried to, the first thing we thought of was, and what I thought of was to check on the children.
And where did you go?
We went to the house at 29 Valley Road.
When you got to the house, what, if any, cars did you see there?
I didn't see any cars.
What did you do when you got to 29 Valley Road?
I rang and knocked on the front door several times. We didn't get an answer, so we got back in the car and we tried to find where Harry's hotel was.
How did you do that?
We knew it was in Dedham, and we just tried which hotel we thought it might be.
What happened while you were looking for the hotel that the defendant was staying at?
I was able to see the 2 cars from the home at the hotel, and I knew that that was the right location. There was a Jeep and a Mercedes parked there.
What did you do when you saw the Jeep and the Mercedes parked there?
I took a picture of both, and then I went inside, and
I'm going to stop you there. Ms. Gilman, could you please put Exhibit 118 on the screen? If you could just move, thank you very much. And looking at Exhibit 118, could you please describe what that is?
That is the Jeep that they had.
Is that the photograph you took when you went to the hotel in the early morning hours of May 15th?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, could you please put Exhibit 117 up on the screen? Thank you. And what is depicted in this photograph?
A Mercedes.
And whose Mercedes is that?
That is also one of the family vehicles.
And was that in the parking lot in Dedham on the early morning hours of May 15th?
Yes, they were next to each other.
To your knowledge, who normally drove the Jeep?
Harry liked the Jeep, so Harry would drive the Jeep.
What about the Mercedes?
Often Katie would drive it, but they would occasionally switch up the vehicles.
When Harry was living in Florida, which car was Katie driving?
She was,
if you know. If you don't remember, that's fine.
she was mostly driving the Jeep, but I don't recall which in particular.
Thank you. So you stated that you found the hotel in Dedham but when you found the vehicles in the parking lot, is that right?
Yes.
After you snapped those 2 pictures that we just saw, what did you do?
I went in, and I'd like to remind everyone that it was COVID time, so it was a little bit awkward.
When you say awkward, what do you mean?
People weren't supposed to be talking to each other, like gathering or anything like that, so it was just an awkward time for everyone. So to be like looking for someone and trying to find someone, it was just a little bit awkward. So I went up to the clerk at the front desk, and I asked if they could ring the room of Harry Tuerk.
And what happened then?
They rang the room multiple times and nobody picked up, and I was very frustrated. I couldn't reach my friend because I thought she was in there because the car was there. So then I went back to the house at 29 Valley Road, and I tried to make sure the kids were okay again for a second time, and I went to the side door, the glass door this time.
So you said that when you went to the hotel, you were sort of frustrated because you couldn't get in touch with your friend when they were ringing the room. Is that right?
That's right.
Which friend are you referring to?
Katie.
Were you trying to get in touch with her in any other way during this time period?
Yeah, phone calls, text messages. It was not like her.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It was not like her to not answer repeated texts or phone calls.
And when you say phone calls, that would be to her cell phone, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So after you left the hotel when you could not find Katie, you said you returned to 29 Valley Road, is that right?
I did.
Then what happened?
I knocked on the side door, which was glass, and that leads into the kitchen, and I saw Sam there. And
Who's Sam?
Sam is her son.
Okay. And approximately how old was Sam at the time, if you know?
I don't remember, maybe 13 around.
Okay. And what happened when you found Sam in the kitchen?
I think I startled him. I was frantically looking for his mom at that point, and I asked him for the phone number of his dad, and I also asked him if all the kids were in the house, and he said yes, they were upstairs.
Did you see any of the other children at that time?
I did not. They were upstairs, and my goal was to get the phone number for the dad and just make sure everybody was in the house.
So you said that you entered the house through the side door and you were in the kitchen, is that right?
Yes.
Did you go in any other rooms in the house?
I did not.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 148 on the screen? And what is depicted in Exhibit 148?
That is the house at 29 Valley Road.
Your Honor, may I approach, please?
Yes.
I'm handing you a laser pointer.
Okay.
So you have to press this button. If you could please show the jury, you stated that you originally went to the front door. If you could just show us where the front door is located at 29 Valley Road.
I don't know if it's reaching.
It will, just move it around, thank you.
This is the front door.
Okay. And when you returned the second time after you had been to the hotel, you said that you went to the side door? If you could just show us where that side door is.
The side door was over on this side.
And that led directly into the kitchen?
Yes.
Is it in between, is the side door in between the garage and the house?
It was in the back. It was in the back of the house. Like they had a patio and things like that in the back, and on the patio deck there was a sliding door that was glass.
Okay, so if, Ms. Gilman, if you could place Exhibit 149. So this door that's in between the garage and the home, that's not the door that you went in?
No, it wasn't. I did look through that door, but I went to the side door to meet Sam in the kitchen.
When you went to the sliding glass door, did you have to go through a fence or a gate or anything like that?
I don't remember if there's a gate that I went through, but I had to knock on the door because that was a locked door, and Sam opened it up.
Thank you. So you stated that you spoke with Sam and you were able to get Mr. Roca's phone number, is that right?
Yes.
What did you do at that time?
I had gone home, and I took a couple minutes to kind of gather myself and think about what to say to the father. And I told him that the kids were home alone, I couldn't find Katie, and I didn't know what was going on, but it would be a good idea to do a wellness check.
And at that point, did your conversation with Stephen Roca end?
I sent him the pictures of the two cars of where I thought they were, or where now I knew they were. And I had also, I think, sent the text from Kurt that made me more alarmed to think that they needed a wellness check.
And at that point, did you stay at your home after you had alerted Mr. Roca to the situation?
Yes, I did. I took a shower and then I tried to kind of like look at places where Katie might have gone if she, you know, just needed like some time by herself where she might be.
At some point that evening of May 15th of 2020, did you go to the Dover police station?
I did.
Why did you do that?
By that time, Stephen had called me and told me that something was going on with Harry, that he was being brought out by an ambulance, and he was like, what is going on? And the Dover police had been involved, and the Dedham police had been involved at that point. And then the Dover police called us in for Kurt and I for a statement.
Did you give them anything else while you were at the Dover police station?
Yes, I gave them my phone because I thought it would help find Katie quicker.
And did you consent to an extraction of your cell phone?
I did.
Was that done to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Does anybody need to break jurors before cross-examination? Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Reddington.
Probably towards the end. Would you agree with me that you and Ms. McLean communicated on a literally daily basis from 2014 to 15 up to 2020?
Roughly daily. I mean, yes.
And you'd agree with me that your communications on a daily basis were really pretty much consumed most of the day. You talk in the morning, you talk in the afternoon, you talk late afternoon, you talk in the evening, talk in the late evening.
Depend on what was going on. Obviously, we have jobs,
Right.
family matters,
So
activities.
how many texts do you believe over that period of time? Would you agree with me that 2014 or 15 that you first made contact with Ms. McLean?
Around 2015.
And from 2015 until 2020, would you agree with me that you had almost 12,000 pages of text messages between yourself and Katie?
I can't confirm how many pages. I've never seen them printed out.
Okay.
But there was a lot of text messages,
A lot of
yes.
text messages, yeah. And when the police were investigating this case in the very beginning, did they ask you to sign a document to
They
get
did.
access to your phone?
They did.
And did they seize your phone?
They did not seize my phone.
Did they look at your phone?
They did.
Did you have any text messages from yourself and Katie? Whether it's 12,000 pages worth or one page? Did you have any text messages between the two of you on your phone?
Yes, we had text messages between us on my phone.
And going how far back?
As far as I know, they started in 2015.
So your testimony would be that you did not delete any text messages with Katie. Is that right?
I don't recall which text messages were deleted or not deleted.
Okay. You started to get involved with this investigation on the 20th of May when you called the police and indicated that you had been to the house and that you could not find Katie. Is that correct?
I didn't call the police. Mr. Rocca did, but I made a statement at the police department in Dover.
And when you went to the police department in Dover, do you recall how many times, if you remember, that you spoke to the police investigators from Dover Police Department? Once or twice? Because you gave an interview, right?
I gave an interview, yes.
All right. Do you remember the date that you gave them the interview?
It was on the date that she was missing.
Do you recall when you spoke with, was it Trooper Jeffrey Kotkowski that you spoke to? If you remember.
I don't remember his last name. I remember speaking to an officer
Okay,
in
so
the
you don't-
Dover PD
that's all right, You
department.
don't remember his last name. That's fine. And you told the police in that investigation what you knew about the relationship she had with Harry Tuerk, correct?
Yes,
Now, you knew Harry Tuerk because actually he had done surgery on your father, right?
that is completely incorrect.
He did not do surgery on your father.
No, he did not.
You tell the police that he did surgery on your father?
No.
So when you first met Harry Tuerk, it would be through Kathleen McLean?
Yes, it was through Katie McLean.
And you knew that, and she introduced you to Harry, right?
Yes,
She told you that Harry was a surgeon at St. E's, right?
that's right.
Were you working at St. E's at the time?
I was not.
You wanted, however, to work at St. E's, correct?
Yes, one of my prior colleagues was working there and Harry was working there, so
Your answer is yes, correct?
yes.
Do you recall speaking to Ms. McLean and asking whether or not she'd talk to Harry about getting you a job there?
I think it's normal for people who are getting a job to get recommendations, so yes, that's something I would do.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not what you know, who you know, as they say, right? I mean, if you know somebody, that's fine. You can reach out and they can help you out, right? And that's what he did, right? Yes? You're nodding your
Yes.
head? And he got you the job at St. E's, right? And you were a good worker.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes,
And on occasion, you even worked with him, right?
I did.
And you had occasion to observe his surgical techniques, right?
Absolutely.
And in your text messages, you actually, on one occasion, indicated that his surgery was music.
Yes, it was.
And it was fun to watch. It was interesting to watch him act as a surgeon because he did a damn good job at it, right?
Absolutely.
When you met Katie, when you first started talking with Ms. McLean, would you agree with me that one of the things that you two would talk about was her concerns that Harry was having relationships with other women online or offline, right?
That topic came up.
It came up about 1,000 times, right? Wasn't just come up once, it came up all the time, right?
I think the culture of hospitals is that there's some questions about relationships that goes on.
Okay. Well, I mean, she would reach out to you in your text messages. For example, do you recall in the beginning portion of your relationship would be page 1710 on the texts, that she sent you a message saying that she is
Objection.
All right, first of all, is there a date on that, Mr. Reddington?
Pull up 1710 on this. August 6th,
Of what year?
2018. Beginning of their relationship.
Can you show Ms. Beatty and Ms. McLaughlin, please?
Could we approach, please?
Yes, we can approach.
Bring the laptop.
All right, so jurors, I just want to give you an instruction. You're going to hear this witness testify about statements that were allegedly made to her by Katie McLean. Those statements are only offered for a limited purpose. That is, to show the state of mind of Katie McLean around the time of the alleged event in the relationship. You may only consider those statements, that is, to Ms. McLean's state of mind, only if you find that the defendant was aware of her state of mind. You may not consider the statements for the truth of what is asserted in those statements.
Thank you. So, Ms. Pettigrew, I'm going to ask you if you recall the content of these text messages in your communications with Ms. McLean. Do you recall that she indicated to you that she found in his cell phone a woman that he had an affair 14 years ago, Kate Kelly?
I remember the name Kate Kelly.
Okay, she was from New Hampshire, right? Yes?
Yes.
And do you remember that Kate McLean was very upset about the fact that she found that contact in Harry's phone? Talk to you about it. The two of you sent texts back and forth.
I remember conversations about the name Kate Kelly.
And the conversations basically were that Kate McLean was very upset about that, right?
As far as I knew, she was trying to figure out what was going on.
Right. And she told you that she found that by looking in his phone, right?
I don't recall that particular aspect of her looking in the phone.
Do you recall her further into the conversations indicating that she texted him, "I know because I have his phone"? Do you recall her telling you that?
I don't recall that specific text.
And Harry emailed an open position at St. E's along the same time for you to get that job, right? You recall that?
There was a job fair where multiple people could come.
All right, do you recall that
It
there
was a
was
job
a text?
fair.
Excuse me. Do you recall sending a text to her, 1723, indicating that Harry emailed you an open position at St. E's? Email. Yes or no? Do you recall it?
I recall the job fair.
What's a job fair? Other people help?
It's where anybody can come
Right.
and
Do you have a problem with acknowledging that Harry actually emailed you an open position, information about an open position?
no, I just don't recall that specific
Okay.
email.
So that's the
I
answer.
remember the job fair that he
That's the
forwarded
answer,
me.
is you don't recall. It's easy.
Okay.
You don't recall. Do you recall that she was upset and texted you that Harry was going to lend a friend $200,000, and she was very upset about him depleting his assets?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you have text messages and oral conversations with her about how much money Harry had?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, do you recall her indicating that he, not her, was a dating site addict and he needed the rush?
Objection.
Overruled.
I remember both of them talking about dating sites.
Okay. And do you recall her indicating that, in her opinion, he was a dating site addict and needed the rush?
I don't remember those terms, but they did talk about the dating sites. It often comes up in new relationships, whether or not to
Okay, so,
stop the dating sites or not.
right, yeah, you've answered that.
Yeah.
Do you recall?
That's pretty common.
Okay, so let's do it this way. I ask a question, you answer, okay? Mm-hmm. Thank you. So do you recall indicating to her, I guess maybe I should work for Harry, you need a spy? Do you remember saying that to her?
Overruled.
Are you talking about a joke?
The other one that said it.
Are you talking about a joke? That
Do you
was,
remember saying it?
I remember a joke passed between Katie and I.
Uh-huh. And the joke was what? That you were going to be a spy for her?
I remember a joke like that, yes.
Okay. What did you mean?
It's just a joke.
Like what? I don't get the joke. What joke? What was the joke?
It's just a joke between friends.
Okay. And what was the joke?
That if you know where someone is and you are spending time with them, that you would, tell them what you saw.
Right. And she was very active on tracking websites as well, tracking his whereabouts. Isn't that right? That you knew about?
Overruled.
I think both of them did that.
Okay,
So,
look, the question is, were you aware of them discussing anything about tracking websites? Yes or no?
they tracked each other,
They track each other, okay.
yes.
So you know that she actually recalled sending her a text saying, you gotta get off that tracking thing? She felt that it was interfering with their relationship?
I say that to parents that track their children all the time as well. There's a lot of helicopter parents
Okay,
out
so the
there.
question is, again, if you can focus, I apologize if I confused you. Mm-hmm. Do you recall any conversations about the tracking app that she was using ruining their relationship?
As far as I know, they were both using it, and people
Can you
use
just
it for
answer
their
the
kids.
question?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Now, recall that she then, at the same time frame, moving up about a month or so, indicated that Dina friended him on Facebook and that he deleted the account. I went into his phone. Do you recall her saying anything like that to you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know who Dina was?
I don't remember Dina. There was only so many I could keep track of.
So many what?
So many people that Harry knew.
Oh, how about the guys that she knew? How many guys did she know that you knew about?
Sustained.
Did you know she was on the dating websites?
Objection.
Overruled.
I think most people that go on dating websites
No,
date
no,
multiple
listen to the
people.
question. Do you know she, McLean, was on dating websites?
Both of them were on dating websites, so yes.
Do you know?
Yes.
That she, thank you. She was on dating
Yes.
websites. And you know that she was receiving photographs of men, various stages of dress, on exercise equipment, beaches, things of that nature. You know that, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
That's the nature of online
Hey,
dating.
listen, just take a moment before you answer the question to see if there's an objection, okay? Thank you.
So how about the dates that she went on? You remember the dentist from New Hampshire, right?
Objection, Your Honor, may we,
Well, they were,
Sustained.
may we approach?
Yes.
I've lost all my boards. Lisa?
They were here.
Oh, they're up there? Okay. You would agree with me from your personal knowledge that in November of 17, Harry and Kathleen McLean met online. It was November 17, right?
I believe so.
And in March of 18, Kathleen McLean and her 3 children moved into his home, right?
Yes.
You recall talking to her about her moving into Dover and using the word, it's a good score. Do you recall that?
The sarcastic comment? Yes, that
Another joke?
sounds right.
Okay, so what did you mean by it's a good score? Congratulations, moved to Dover.
I think when people get into a good relationship that they're happy with and they feel like they finally met the right person, which is how Katie felt, that's a good score. How she felt.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the good score, somehow the town of Dover and the house and everything just kind of was in the periphery of that?
I don't know. I'm from Wellesley, so I don't really judge towns. There's all kinds of people in towns.
Okay. So she moves in March of 18, and you knew in December of 19 that he had consulted with a divorce lawyer because she told you, right?
Objection.
Sustained. Rephrase it, please.
All right, we have in mind the close relationship that you guys had and texting on a constant basis. You'd agree with me that everything from shoes to skirts to makeup to blush to eyelashes, everything, you guys would talk about it in your texts, right?
We would talk about anything and everything.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. When you would talk about that, you also talked about kids, issues with the children, activities, things of that nature. You would share with
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Harry, 5 months, less than 5 months after they got married, went to see a divorce lawyer, you were the first person she told, right?
I don't know if it was the first person, but she told me yes.
She told you that, right?
Yes.
And what did she tell you? What was her state of mind when she told you that?
She was conflicted.
Okay, what does that mean?
She had feelings both ways.
It doesn't matter her feelings. He's the one that went to a divorce lawyer, right? First. 5 months later.
I don't recall the details of him going to the divorce lawyer.
You don't remember your friend telling you that he wanted to get a divorce?
They would have arguments all the time. Couples do. They talk about divorce, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it.
Okay, so if I ask you about that, when did they talk about and what did they talk about divorce? You wouldn't be able to tell me one thing because that is not true. Correct?
Objection.
I'm not
One
sure.
second.
I feel like you're
One
putting
second, when
words in my mouth.
Excuse me, ma'am. When there's an objection, you don't answer, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. So the objection is sustained. Please rephrase the question.
So, the end of January of 2020, you knew that he was going to get a divorce, right? You at least knew that.
I did not know for sure what his plans were. I had never spoken to him about it.
Things changed.
Yes.
You knew he started a divorce letter, right? She told you.
They talked about divorce a couple different ways.
Not they, please, focus. They, nothing. Her told you got a divorce letter, right? That's all.
Yes.
And as a result of that, then she took action and got a divorce lawyer of her own, right?
Sure.
Right. And then she went and got a restraining order against him and got him thrown out of his house, right?
That's not how I recall the timeline of events.
Well, it was February 3rd that she got the restraining order. It was the end of January that he signed the divorce letter. Well, before she started with it.
Can you restate your question?
Sure. February 3rd is when she got the restraining order throwing him out of his house. Okay? Yes?
Okay.
And it was in the end of January 30th that he had the divorce lawyer send her a letter saying he wanted a divorce 5 months after they got married. You knew that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was February 3rd, after he got the divorce lawyer, that she went and got the restraining order to throw him out of his house, right?
Objection asked and answered.
No, overruled.
I'm over here.
I didn't know if you objected.
Okay. It was an objection. It was overruled, so you can answer the question.
Trying to be good. Sorry. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So now, when he was out of the house, you knew that she stayed in the house, right?
Yes.
With the 3 kids. And one of the questions the DA asked you was about the car, right?
Yes.
And which car was it that she had?
She would use either one.
I know
She had the Jeep and she had the Mercedes.
Okay, and they were his cars, right?
Yes. I mean, she had 3 kids,
I
so
don't care about the 3 kids.
depending on how many kids she had to cart around.
Right.
Right.
His car, right?
I think once you're married, it doesn't become his and hers, but sure.
No, I guess not. Before they got married, he owned the Jeep, right?
Yes.
Before they got married, he owned the Mercedes, right?
Yes.
Mercedes was over $150,000, right?
I don't know how much it costs.
He liked to drive the Mercedes, right?
I'm not sure. Is this
Who
relevant?
paid for the car while he was out? Again, I'm over here. Who paid for the car when he was out down in Florida during the pandemic? Who paid for the car?
Sustained.
Do you recall, moving on, now it's after the restraining order was issued and Harry was out of the house, around February 2020, having conversation about him being out of the house, but he wanted to live in the basement. Do you recall that conversation?
Yes, I do.
And he basically just asked if he could please move back in the house and stay in the basement, at least, because of concerns with the pandemic, right?
Yep, I remember that.
And she said no, right?
I don't know if the restraining order had been lifted. I don't think that was allowed, but they did talk about it.
Right. But as far as her agreement or not agreement, you know from a text that she sent you at that time frame that we talked about, that she said no, LOL. She wouldn't let him move into the basement. It's his house.
I think there was an issue about how they were communicating and getting along at the time, and there needed to be a barrier, and that's what she felt.
How would they communicate? They weren't communicating and getting along at the time. He was out of the house in Florida, and she's living in his house with the 3 kids.
So why would he move in the basement then? I don't
Because he had nowhere to live. He's living in a trailer.
Objection.
Sustained. Next
But if they
question.
weren't talking, why would he move in?
Ma'am.
It's
Yes.
confusing me, sorry.
go ahead, Mr. Reddington.
Around March into April of 2020, you knew that she knew that he was going back to Germany.
Yes, I knew he was taking a trip to Germany.
And in fact, that he was going to Germany and he had a job there. She knew that, right?
I don't know if he had a job there, but there was a job he was exploring in Germany, yes.
Okay, and she knew that he wanted to go back to Germany for good, right?
It was an option that he was trying to figure out, yes. As far as I know, he had an option in Florida as well.
And then, but he didn't want to stay with her. He wanted to leave. He wanted to get divorced. He wanted to go back to Germany, not go to Florida with her or anything, right?
That was not my understanding.
Sorry, ma'am. Just, you need to wait a second before you answer the question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You don't have to be sorry. Just wait a second to see if there's an objection to the question. So the objection is sustained. Next question.
In March of 2020, you would have your husband, Vincent, is it?
Yes.
And Vincent can speak German, right?
He can speak 4 languages.
So that's wonderful. Is the answer yes, he can speak German?
One of the languages he can speak is German.
Yes. And she, on a number of occasions, would ask you to have Vincent interpret German messages that she received, or he received from Germany, thinking that they were women, right?
I don't think it was that. It was just a language barrier, and to be able to translate would be helpful.
In March, at the end of March of 2020, do you recall her texting you, he's talking to a woman from Germany early, can you please have Vincent look at it?
If you don't understand a language, the normal thing is to translate it, so that's what she asked him to do, yes.
Do you recall her at the same time frame, moving from March into April, that she determined from looking at his phone, he's on Twitter, on the phone, texting like cheating in my face? Do you recall her saying that to you?
I don't recall that specific one, but I do recall that there were conversations about cheating.
Involving both of them, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
You remember when they, back when they got married, you remember they went to Las Vegas?
Yes.
You remember that it was a, what do you call it, a conference? I think like a international conference or something. I think it was on aging.
I believe Harry was going to a conference and Katie went along.
Okay. And he was speaking at this conference on whatever the topic was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was when they were in Las Vegas that they got married, right?
Yes.
And that was, you know, everybody was pretty happy about that for a period of time, right?
Of course.
And then she texted you that within 3 weeks that he kicked her out again, go look for a house, is what she told you. You remember that?
I remember that they weren't getting along and there was an option that she would have to look for another home.
Well, it wasn't an option because back before May of 2020, it was his home, right?
Objection.
No, overall.
You knew he owned the home, right?
Well, she put money into the home too. So
Like what?
she put money from her home sale into the home, and she also helped build the garden in the back.
She didn't put a nickel into that home.
That's not my understanding.
Well, it may not be your understanding, but she didn't put a nickel into your home.
That's not my understanding.
Ma'am, you need
So, sorry.
to disregard that last answer, jurors.
You recall that she told you, moving forward again to with the wedding, that she was excited that she got married and there was no pre-up, is what she told you. Prenup, I'm sorry, not a pre-up, prenup. I mean, you remember that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And she was happy about that, right?
I think most women are happy when there's not a prenup.
And why is that?
I think it just means that you're in love.
You're in love.
Yeah, I believe in love. And so did Katie.
And you recall having a conversation with her in April of 2020, where you were telling her, I think you're referring to the music thing with the surgery, a story about him going to a little boy to talk him into having kidney surgery. You teared up telling her about that, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you recall that she indicated again at that same time frame that she texted you that she was determined to move home to Germany? He was determined to move home to Germany. Remember that?
I think that was one of the options for him. I think he had others as well, so it's
Okay, so
the way
I'm
you're
asking
asking the
about the
question.
text, ma'am, not what you think other options were, might have been, could have been, should have been. She was upset and told you that he was determined to move, and I quote, determined to move home to Germany, is the text she sent you. Do you remember that?
I do.
All right. Do you recall, furthering in that topic, that she then texted you that he had a job offer in Germany and was going to Germany?
I do remember that
Okay.
conversation.
All right. You said that she had a beautiful, cute little house in Sudbury, right?
Yes,
And you'd agree with me that that ultimately went up for sale, right?
it did.
You'd agree with me that it was in foreclosure, right?
I do not have that information. I know she was renting it while she was living in Dover.
Okay, do you recall that in fact she described the house to you as shitty and that actually the basement was flooded right when she was trying to sell it?
I don't believe that certain homes are shitty and certain homes are not, but that might be a conversation someone has when they're frustrated, which I can understand. There was a water, like French drain in the basement. That might have been what she was referring to. So I do recall that conversation.
Would you agree with me that there were a plethora of texts from Katie McLean to you talking about having a drink, I'm having a drink, I'm feeling tipsy, I'm trashed, I'm hammered, I'm hungover. You asked, has your drinking been okay? Do you recall that?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you recall her indicating that she had, and she texted you, and this would be right around the same time that they were supposedly reconciling, that she had a new app to track his location. Do you recall her telling you that?
I do not recall.
Do you recall her indicating, wow, Dr. Tuerk apparently can perform surgery from Home Depot? Do you recall that one? It's kind of funny.
Sustained.
Did she ever tell you that she used the the tracking app, his location? You gotta wait till she objects.
Okay, overruled. She can answer that.
Okay, you can answer.
I answered this already. They both had tracking apps, so yes, both of them had tracking apps.
Okay. But you don't recall her indicating that he was at Home Depot on one occasion? No?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Moving up again, right to when they were at the hotel and allegedly reconciling, everything was great, that she was texting you, and I quote, I looked through Harry's cell last night. Recall her telling you that?
Yes.
Do you recall her texting you and saying, I'm so happy I have Vanessa to look at the phone? That'd be you, Vanessa, right?
I don't recall that one.
Do you recall her right before the May alleged reconciliation that she texted you for help to find out who is this Stephanie bitch? It's his type, fake blonde, fake tits. Do you recall her texting you that?
Sustained.
I do not recall.
Sustained.
Okay.
Do you recall while they were ostensibly reconciling that she indicated to you that she was still going out on dates with the dentist from New Hampshire?
Objection.
Overruled.
When they were separated?
Do you recall the dentist from New Hampshire?
Yes, I don't recall the timeline you're speaking
Okay, so the answer is yes,
Yes.
right? His name was Michael, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in May of 2020, she told you in a text that she went out on a date with the dentist again, right?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes?
Yes, they were separated. So.
Yes, the answer is yes, right?
Yes.
I know you want to say they were separated, but you knew that she went on a date in May of 20 with the dentist Michael from New Hampshire.
Okay.
Okay. And again, towards the very end of that time frame, she indicated to you that he intended, again, talking about he had the job. Now it's not possibly. He had the job in Germany, and he will be leaving. She told you that, right? She was upset.
Well, yes, it also wasn't the amount of money that he would like. So
Oh, so it wasn't enough money?
that was for him to decide. He was still
Right, but
deciding.
she knew how much it was, though, right?
Objection.
It wasn't it wasn't.
Sustained. Sustained. Next question.
Do you remember her indicating or asking, and again at the time frame of the end of April, beginning of May, can you see if he's back on Instagram and start printing them out? Do you recall her asking for your help for that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall that one of the text messages that going back to February 2019, on February 20th of 2019, that you sent a text to Harry, and he was asking you about why Katie was having, you're objecting.
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, can I see it sidebar?
Yes.
You spoke to the police after you went to the house on May 20th, May 15th, I'm sorry. You knew at that point that Harry had signed a deed transferring his house over to her and him jointly, right?
Yes.
And she told you that, right?
Yes.
And she was pretty excited about that, right?
Objection.
Was part of his
One
will,
second.
so it made
Wait,
sense to me.
You need to wait, ma'am, until there's an objection, so just wait to answer. Rephrase the question. It's sustained.
So you knew that, or she had told you that he transferred or put her on the deed to the house, right?
Yeah, it made sense to me because
So the answer is
that was
yes?
part of his will.
It was what?
Yes.
It was his will? Okay. And when you were speaking with the police, this popcorn that you made reference to, when did that come about, that you were going to have that code with Kurt?
We were nervous.
Sorry?
We were nervous
I'm
about,
not asking about you being nervous. I said when. It's a W word. When?
okay,
When was it?
so we were trying to figure out when they were reconciling it.
When was it that you decided to use this popcorn word?
Before Harry moved back into the house.
When? November.
So that would be around April.
Okay. It was really just a week before you talked to the police that you decided to use this popcorn. You told the police about popcorn a week before, just a week.
Okay.
Is that right?
I don't know. I'd have to check.
So when you were speaking to Lieutenant or Detective Kwiatkowski, And pursuant to this investigation, on Friday, May 15th, the police spoke to you, okay? I can show you the report if you want it. It's got coffee all over it, but I can show it to you if you want it.
Okay.
And that they interviewed you about your relationship with Katie McLean, right?
Right.
Remember that? And you've had a chance to review your statement to the police, right? It's only 2 pages. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated to them that this past week, you created the code word popcorn. So that would have been, you know, like May 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that, right?
I would have to check the time.
So if do you want me to show you where you told the police it was this past week? Have in mind you were speaking to them on May 15th? I can show you where it says that.
I agree, we came up with popcorn before Harry moved in, yes.
Right, you told the police when your memory was a lot fresher than it is today.
It was 5 years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
That in fact, it was this past week that you created the code word popcorn.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead,
I have nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Please be careful. There is a ledge there.
Thank you.
Careful.
Thank you.